What happens through the supper, the Lord's Supper? First, the Lord's Supper gives us perpetual remembrance of Christ's death. As Jesus said, do this in remembrance of me. It memorialized the meaning and significance of his death. You know why? Because the Lord's Supper consists of bread and wine. The bread speaks of his body, and the wine speaks of his blood. Therefore, it's a perpetual remembrance of Christ's death and resurrection, of course. The significance of the memorialize it, number one. Number two, the Lord's Supper confirms all the benefits of his death to believers. If you partake of the Lord's Suppers, you basically receive the benefits of his death to believers. Number three, the Lord's Supper brings about spiritual nourishment and growth to strengthen our faith and mature us. Now, this is interesting. The Lord's Supper brings about spiritual nourishment and growth to strengthen our faith and mature us. Now, in Reformed Doctrines, Presbyterians is saying that the Lord's Supper is a means of grace. What is a means? It's method, basically. It's a channel. The Lord's Supper is a channel of the grace of God to us. So when you go out to partake of the bread and the wine, if you put your faith, if you take it casually, you probably get nothing out of it. But if you come to it with reverence and awe and with thankfulness in your hearts to the Lord Jesus, who died on your behalf, and receive it with thanksgiving, and worshipful attitude, then you receive the impartation of the presence of Christ in whatever form, whatever shape. It's not, what shall I call? It's not noticeable immediately, perhaps, but you do feel the presence of God. But in what form and what shape, we don't know. But you can say that it brings nourishment and strengthen our faith. Number four, the Lord's Supper leads us to greater devotion to Christ and thankfulness. Thankfulness, and because you remember he died for you, and therefore you express your thankfulness and devotion. Number five, the Lord's Supper brings us for a bound and pledge of a communion with Christ and his body, to discern the Lord's body when we partake. So the Lord's Supper makes us bound our commitment and our pledge of our communion with Christ. It's intimacy with God.